After the death of Abraham and Sarah, Abraham's son Isaac and Rebekah encountered a problem similar to Abraham and Sarah's. Rebekah was unable to have kids. We aren't granted as much insight into Rebekah's suffering as we got with Sarah's, but they were unable to conceive for 20 years. Genesis 25, verse 21. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. When God answered Isaac's prayer to let her conceive, though he did so in duplicate, when Rebekah began to wonder why her pregnancy was so active, God provided an answer. Genesis 25, verses 22 through 23. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." Even before they were born, Jacob and Esau were constantly battling, foreshadowing the impending conflict between their two nations, Israel and Edom. God also revealed another surprising fact about these twins to Rebekah. Unlike the traditional practice of the older son receiving the birthright and blessing, the older would serve the younger. Genesis 25, verses 24 through 26. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment, so they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out, with his hand grasping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. Finally, the twins were born. The elder was covered in red hair like a fur coat, and he was given the name Esau. He was also known as Edom, the Hebrew word for red. The younger emerged, his hand on Esau's heel. As a result, he was given the name Jacob, which means he grasps the heel. Jacob's name is significant because it can also mean he strives or he deceives. Both meanings prove prophetic over the course of his life, with the deception part coming into play only a few verses later. Genesis 25, verse 27 through 28. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Personality clashes play a significant role in Jacob and Esau's conflict. Esau was outgoing, whereas Jacob preferred to stay at home. This may not have been a problem in and of itself, but it appears to have influenced the parents' choice of favorites. Isaac admired Esau because he was a man's man, and Rebekah admired Jacob because he enjoyed spending time at home. In the boys' feud, Isaac and Rebekah were as much to blame as anyone else. Genesis 25, verses 29 through 34. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country, famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." "That is why he was also called Edom," Jacob replied. "First sell me your birthright." "Look, I am about to die," Esau said. "What good is the birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. When Esau arrived home, famished from a day of hunting, he made an unbelievable trade. Esau gave Jacob his inheritance in exchange for a bowl of food. In this scene, we can see both sons' flaws. Jacob, seeing an opportunity to profit from Esau's hunger, decided to squeeze him for all he was worth. "Sell me your birthright." He even made Esau swear an oath to hold him accountable. Jacob's grasping and deceptive tendencies are evident here. In contrast, Esau exhibited impulsiveness and short-sightedness. When faced with the prospect of losing his double inheritance, he rationalized, "I'm about to die of hunger, so what good is a birthright to me?" In other words, he chose to pursue temporary happiness over something far more spiritually valuable. According to the author, Esau despised his birthright because he perceived it to be so insignificant that a single bowl of lentil stew became more important to him. The author of Hebrews warns his readers not to be immoral or irreverent like Esau. Hebrews 12, verse 16. Take note of the warning. Physical pleasure should never take precedence over spiritual priorities. When you do this, you are ignoring what is more important. This warning is more important than ever for our generation, which has been bombarded with lies. Don't be an impulsive like Esau. giving up your future for a fleeting pleasure. Genesis 26, verse 34 through 35. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and also Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. They were a source of grief to Isaac and Rebekah. Even though God had been blessing Isaac, Esau was making life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah by marrying two Hittite women. Esau's rebellion against his parents' wishes demonstrates why he was unfit to carry on the covenant. Rather than allowing his father to assist him in selecting an acceptable spouse, he followed his own instincts and took not one, but two wives from the idolatrous nations around him. Genesis 27, verses 1 through 4. When Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called for Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." "Here I am," he answered. Isaac said, "I am now an old man, and don't know the day of my death. Now then, get your equipment, your quiver and bow, and go out to the open country to hunt for some wild game for me. Prepare me the kind of tasty food I like and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my blessing before I die." The blessing represented God's operation in the family line, so that no matter what showers and storms raged around them, they were safe. Isaac began the ritual of passing on his blessing by summoning his older son Esau and asking for a delicious meal, so that he could bless him before he died. Isaac preferred Esau's wild game and requested that he go hunting for an animal that they could share during this sacred time. Genesis 27, verses 5 through 17. Now Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau left for the open country to hunt game and bring it back, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "Look, I overheard your father say to your brother Esau, 'Bring me some game and prepare me some tasty food to eat, so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die.' Now, my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats, so I can prepare some tasty food for your father, just the way he likes it. Then take it to your father to eat, so that he may give you his blessing before he dies." Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, "But my brother Esau is a hairy man, while I have smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him and would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing." His mother said to him, "My son, let the curse fall on me. Just do what I say. Go and get them for me." So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and she prepared some tasty food, just the way his father liked it. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her older son, which she had in the house, and put them on her younger son Jacob. She also covered his hands on the smooth part of his neck with the goat skins. Then she handed to her son Jacob the tasty food and the bread she had made. Esau went to the field to hunt game, as his father had instructed, but his mother, Rebekah, had other plans. Calling in Jacob, she devised a plan. Jacob would go to the flock, select 2 young goats, and mom would prepare them as a delectable meal for Isaac. Genesis 27, verses 18 through 25. He went to his father and said, "My father." "Yes, my son," he answered. "Who is it?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." Isaac asked his son, "How did you find it so quickly, my son?" "The Lord your God gave me success," he replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come near so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you really are my son Esau or not." Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him and said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." He did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau, so he proceeded to bless him. "Are you really my son Esau?" he asked. "I am," he replied. Then he said, "My son, bring me some of your game to eat, so that I may give you my blessing." Jacob brought it to him, and he ate, and he brought some wine, and he drank. The ruse almost didn't work when Jacob approached his father Isaac because of Jacob's distinct voice. Isaac actually asked Jacob 3 times if he really was Esau, and without hesitation, Jacob the deceiver assured him. Worse, Jacob used God's name in vain, explaining that he was able to find the goats so quickly because the Lord your God made it possible. Genesis 27, verse 26 through 27. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Come here, my son, and kiss me." So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, He blessed him and said, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed." The exchange of blessings was always accompanied by meaningful touch, which is why Isaac implored Jacob to come closer and kiss him. Identification and intimacy were represented by touch. Genesis 27, verse 28. May God give you heaven's dew in earth's richness, an abundance of grain in new wine. Isaac bequeathed to Jacob his most valuable possession, the blessing he had received from his father Abraham. May God give to you, from the dew of the sky and from the richness of the land, an abundance of grain and new wine. In other words, everything you need to fulfill God's promises will fall from heaven, son. The agricultural metaphor is vivid. It makes no difference how hard you work on the land if God does not send rain. Far too many of us are struggling to make something of our lives without the blessing that can only come from above. We don't need to work harder. We just need to position ourselves to receive God's blessing. Genesis 27, verse 29. May nations serve you, and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. Isaac repeated his father's classic covenant. Those who curse you will be cursed, and those who bless you will be blessed. Jacob, as deceptive as he was, would now be at the center of God's blessing. However, Isaac has a longer lineage than Abraham, all the way back to Adam. With the blessing comes the responsibility to use our God-given authority, skills, talents, gifts, and opportunities to lead in a way that honors God in whatever garden He has placed us. Genesis 27, verses 30 through 34. After Isaac finished blessing him, and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, "My father, please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." His father Isaac asked him, "Who are you?" "I am your son," he answered, "your firstborn, Esau." Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came and I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed." When Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, Bless me too, my father." The plot thickens. The blessing cannot be revoked by the time Isaac realizes what has happened. Esau's reaction is at once pitiful and tragic. He cried out in a loud and bitter cry. This was a gut-wrenching scream from a man who realized his entire future had been snatched from him. Genesis 27, verses 35 through 38. But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? This is the second time he has taken advantage of me. He took my birthright, and now he's taken my blessing." Then he asked, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, "I have made him lord over you, and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father." Then Esau wept aloud. Esau's pronouncement on receiving some blessing from his father mirrors the heart cry of so many in our society. "Bless me too, my father," Esau screamed in increasing desperation. Genesis 27, verse 38. How many young people today, whether they know how to express it or not, are pleading with their fathers to simply speak a word of blessing into their lives? Genesis 27, verses 39 through 41. His father Isaac answered him, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck." Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." Finally, Esau received a message from his father, but it was not a blessing. Rather than receiving from the dew of the sky and from the richness of the land, Esau was told that his home would be far from the richness of the land and the dew of the sky. It's no surprise then that Esau harbored a grudge against Jacob and plotted to kill him. Genesis 27, verses 42 through 46. When Rebekah was told what her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, Your brother Esau is planning to avenge himself by killing you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, I'll send word for you to come back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day?" Then Rebekah said to Isaac, "I'm disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from among the women of this land, from Hittite women like these, my life will not be worth living." Rebekah, Jacob's mother, was an eavesdropper and discovered Esau's murderous intent in time to hatch another plot. Jacob would flee immediately to Rebekah's brother Laban in Haran, hiding there until Esau's rage subsided. As a result of this plan, she reasoned Jacob would be more likely to marry someone from their clan rather than the Hittite girls who had been ruining Rebekah's life. Genesis 28, verse 1 through 2. So Isaac called for Jacob and blessed him. Then he commanded him, "Do not marry a Canaanite woman. Go at once to Padan Aram, to the house of your mother's father, Bethuel. Take a wife for yourself there, from among the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother." Isaac, in rare agreement with his wife, dispatched Jacob with a commission to warn him against marrying a Canaanite girl. Instead, Jacob was commanded to marry one of Laban's daughters. Even in the midst of Jacob's deception, God was working to maintain the line of succession. Genesis 28, verses 3 through 5. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and increase your numbers until you become a community of peoples. May He give you and your descendants the blessing given to Abraham, so that you may take possession of the land where you now reside as a foreigner, the land God gave to Abraham. Then Isaac sent Jacob on his way, and he went to Padan Aram, to Laban, son of Bethuel the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, who was the mother of Jacob and Esau. God would bless Jacob and make him fruitful and multiply. Genesis 28, verse 3. Giving his offspring the blessing of Abraham so that he would possess the land. Genesis 28, verse 4. Genesis 28, verses 6 through 9. Now Esau learned that Isaac had blessed Jacob and had sent him to Padan Aram to take a wife from there, and that when he blessed him, he commanded him, "Do not marry a Canaanite woman," and that Jacob had obeyed his father and mother and had gone to Padan Aram. Esau then realized how displeasing the Canaanite women were to his father Isaac, so he went to Ishmael and married Mahalath, the sister of Nebaioth, and daughter of Ishmael, son of Abraham, in addition to the wives he already had. Lesson from Jacob and Esau. In the New Testament, Esau's decision to sell his birthright is used as an example of ungodliness, a godless person who prioritizes worldly pleasures over spiritual blessings. Hebrews 12, verses 15 through 17, NLT. Look after each other so that none of you fails to receive the grace of God. Watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. Make sure that no one is immoral or godless like Esau, who traded his birthright as the firstborn son for a single meal. You know that afterward, when he wanted his father's blessing, he was rejected. It was too late for repentance, even though he begged with bitter tears. Esau's instructive example warns us to hold firm to what is truly valuable, even if it means rebuking fleshly desires. The story of Jacob and Esau is used in the Bible to represent